Chairperson of the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group KHRAG in South Africa, and academic dear Mahmoud Patel. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Erem, and
Thank,
it's an honor to be here with you.
thank you. So, as you know, Freedom for Öcalan and a Solution for Kurdish Question campaign has been started on 74 different points of the world on 10th of October already. So, how important is to have a new campaign for Freedom for Öcalan? First of all, how important is that new era? Very shortly, please.
It is absolutely vital and key that the renewal of the release for Abdullah Öcalan as an international issue is foregrounded to ask for, firstly, immediate access to him, secondly, for his release. We're going on for a quarter of a century for his incarceration. Every right that should have been afforded to a political prisoner has been violated for Abdullah Öcalan. They have even infringed the United Nations Mandela rules. His isolation is viewed as torture. So it is imperative that this renewed campaign, which speaks to many of the previous ones, focuses, prioritizes the immediate access to Abdullah Öcalan by his legal representatives as well as his family. We have not heard from him for 3 years. We also are unsure as to his well-being and his health. And it is precisely because of the authoritarian nature of the Turkish state and those who were complicit in his initial arrest, the NATO members of Turkey as well, that are all part of this continued incarceration. So yes, we must have immediate access to him, and the renewed campaign of the 74 press releases that took place at the same time throughout the globe, including South Africa, call for his release unconditionally as well as immediate access to him.
Thank you, dear Patel. What are your concerns of current treatment of Öcalan? The isolation still continues, as you mentioned. So, what is your comments on isolation of Öcalan? And do you think it's against human rights, as a human rights international human rights lawyer perspective? How would you going to talk about the isolation and what needs to be done to break the isolation? What is your call to break the isolation to Turkey? Very shortly, that one as well, please.
Erem, the isolation has, for the last 3 years, especially that we've heard nothing, is of a serious concern. He's of advanced age. We know a number of years ago he was dragged by the Turkish soldiers that are on the island of Imrali. And when objections were raised, they looked at that in a very negative way, and they further subjected him to more limitations as a political prisoner. So, from a legal perspective, we have exhausted over the years every single approach internally from the state itself and externally as international friends that have been in solidarity with regards to the release and access to Mr. Abdullah Öcalan. But what is poignant for us is the very same international system that precedes how you must deal with political prisoners. Those who enacted it and put those institutions in place are the prime violators of it, including Turkey. All the international instruments they've infringed and reneged and broken into. It is a question of politics, geopolitics, economics, and all those entwined together that have continued with the incarceration of leader or Abdullah Öcalan, or leader Apo, as he is fondly and affectionately known by all those who respect and love him. Remember, he's the embodiment of the Kurdish people, and his continued incarceration is symbolic of keeping the Kurdish people out of mainstream countries of the four artificially created states.
Thank you. You just came to a very good point. So, how important figure is Öcalan? Do you think he has a key role to play for peace in the Middle East and bring peaceful solution to the Kurdish question as well? Because the campaign is related with the Öcalan's freedom and solution for Kurdish question. So, what is the role of Öcalan in that case? Very shortly and to the point.
About 4 years ago, 2019, when we had communication from Ocalan, it was made clear to us that if he is released in less than a week, the Kurdish Turkish issue can be resolved, which is almost a century going on since the Treaty of Lausanne. So, a political solution for the Kurdish question is only realizable if this key to it is released from prison. We are tired of reading of what our leader has to tell us. We are tired of studying his thoughts and ideas. Democratic nation, democratic confederalism. That is the solution for all the problems that are taking place in Western Asia, the Middle East, and most of the globe today, including the genocide that's going on in Gaza, in Palestine by the Zionist Israeli state. Even for that, too, the solution is there. The point is simply this, that what it means for the nation states around, as well as the peoples in those states and the Kurdish people, is that his release, first access, release unconditionally, would resolve the problems in the region, Syria, Iraq, Iran, as well as Turkey and occupied Palestine as well. We understand how entwined the struggles of the Palestinian as well as the Kurdish people are in the founding years of the liberatory and armed struggle of the PKK in the early 80s in the Bekaa Valley. Together, side by side with the PLO, they fought for freedom. So this solidarity and this urgency of his release is very important. And as an international solidarity partner, us from South Africa and Africa in particular, understand that only free men can negotiate. Yet Leader Apo has on so many occasions said, while he was in prison, here is the olive branch I am giving to the Turkish state. Let's find a political solution to this question. And they have always ignored it or played around with it only for their own benefits, strategically to delay doing anything. And as a token, as we know very well from the Turkish state, it likes to play with all sides. That is how they operate. As long as the Kurds are left in chains and Leader Apo remains in prison, that is what they are doing. They want to destroy every vestige of hope of the Kurdish people, and they want to break the spirit and hope of optimism.
Thank you. Uh, Also, would like you to talk about the suggestions. What else needs to be done to make this campaign bigger and more effective? Very shortly, please.
Well, there are different stages that will flow out of what took place on October 10th, or almost a month ago now, for the renewed campaign. Firstly, we must all demand internationally from all those 74 participant countries that took place, including former Robben Island political prisoners in South Africa, stalwarts of our liberatory movement who were part of it, Reverend Alan Bosak, and others, especially those who have experienced similar kinds of things under incarceration. So Abdullah Öcalan must be allowed to meet with his lawyers immediately. That must be a demand from everybody. His lawyers, his family, and ultimately under conditions that would allow him to play his key role for the liberation of his people and a political solution. The international different or faceted organizations from the UN, African Union, as well as the European Union must still be vigorously lobbied for this to take place. Yes, we understand what is happening currently is overshadowing most of the conflicts on an international level. But it doesn't mean we must stop with our pressures and continued lobbying as well as pressure through diplomatic and political means. Of course, when there's no option, armed resistance and self-defense, as Leader Apo has very well articulated in his writings, is a necessary thing. And we must never shy from it because international law allows that. But here we're asking for peace to prevail through a political solution for this conflict. Of course, there are many mechanisms that would have to be put in place for things to go forward. But the continued lobbying pressure from all the different countries that were part of the renewed campaign must continue from their own countries together in the international forums that they have. Political, trade unions, grassroots movements, activists, students, academics, all have a role to play in this. Remember, he is a leader of the largest landless or stateless people for a century now. And
Thank you.
how can the world allow this to continue? Are
Yeah,
some humans more human than others? Of course not.
yeah. Thank you, Mahmoud. So, lastly, very shortly, very briefly, what is your support message to the campaign, and what is your freedom for Öcalan message? Why Öcalan should be free? But please, very shortly, that one as well.
Ocalan must be released unconditionally as soon as possible. Then only there will be a solution. And my message to the campaign is we must continue resolutely no matter what obstacles are in our way. And it is only in that way that our freedom for our people, as well as the Kurdish leader, can happen.
Thank you, dear Mahmoud Patel. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for your valuable comments.